The year is 1940. A woman sits at her kitchen table in Washington, D.C., surrounded by encrypted Nazi messages. The military establishment has dismissed her. Intelligence agencies have turned her away. Even her own colleagues whisper that she should be home raising children, not breaking codes. Her name is Elizebeth Smith Friedman, and she's about to become Nazi Germany's worst nightmare. But this story doesn't start in World War II. It starts decades earlier in a place no one would expect, a Shakespeare festival. In 1916, a young Elizebeth Smith took a job that would change the course of history. She was hired by an eccentric millionaire named George Fabian to work at his private research facility called Riverbank Laboratories in Illinois. Her assignment seemed absurd. Fabian believed that Francis Bacon had hidden secret messages in Shakespeare's plays using cipher codes. He wanted Elizebeth to find them. She never found Bacon's codes in Shakespeare. They didn't exist. But something far more important happened at Riverbank. Elizebeth discovered she had an extraordinary gift for cryptanalysis, the ability to see patterns where others saw only chaos, to find meaning in seemingly random letters and numbers. At Riverbank, she met William Friedman, a geneticist who also became fascinated with codes. They fell in love over ciphers and married in 1917. Together, they would become the most formidable code-breaking couple in American history. When Prohibition began in 1920, Elizebeth found her true calling. The Coast Guard and Treasury Department desperately needed someone who could crack the sophisticated codes used by international smuggling rings. Rum runners were using encrypted radio messages to coordinate massive illegal operations. Ships loaded with alcohol were slipping past authorities with ease. The government came to Elizebeth. She worked from a small office, often juggling her infant children while decrypting messages from criminal networks. The establishment didn't take her seriously at first. How could a housewife possibly outsmart international crime syndicates? She systematically dismantled 23 major smuggling operations. Her code-breaking sent dozens of criminals to prison. She testified in court as an expert witness, the first woman to do so in such cases. But the newspapers rarely mentioned her name. The credit usually went to the mail agents who made the arrests. This pattern of dismissal and erasure would follow her throughout her career. But Elizebeth never stopped. She knew the work mattered more than the recognition. By the late 1930s, a far deadlier enemy was rising. Nazi Germany was building a massive espionage network throughout South America. German intelligence operatives were establishing spy rings in Argentina, Brazil, Chile, and across the Western Hemisphere. Their goal was to gather intelligence on Allied shipping, coordinate with German U-boats, and potentially facilitate a Nazi presence in the Americas. These weren't amateur spies. They were trained Abwehr agents using the most sophisticated encryption systems available. They communicated using Enigma machines and hand ciphers that the Germans believed were absolutely unbreakable. The United States had a problem. The country wasn't yet at war, but Nazi spy networks were operating with impunity across 2 continents. American intelligence agencies were understaffed and overwhelmed. The FBI didn't have the expertise to break these codes. Military intelligence was focused elsewhere. Once again, they turned to Elizebeth Friedman. Elizebeth was given a tiny office and a skeleton staff, no fancy equipment, no computers, obviously. This was 1939. Just pencils, paper, frequency tables, and her brilliant mind. The government wanted her to crack Nazi spy codes, but gave her almost no resources to do it. The intelligence establishment still didn't fully respect her. Some officials questioned whether a woman could handle such sensitive work. Others suggested she was better suited to clerical duties. After all, she was a mother with 2 children. Shouldn't she be at home? Elizebeth ignored them all. She assembled a small team of female codebreakers and went to work. What happened next was nothing short of extraordinary. The Nazi spy networks used multiple layers of encryption. Messages were encoded, then enciphered, sometimes using Enigma machines that the Germans believed were mathematically impossible to break. Each spy ring had different procedures, different codebooks, different systems. Elizabeth attacked them systematically. She studied patterns in radio traffic. She analyzed the structure of messages. She looked for tiny mistakes that human operators inevitably made. She built her own frequency tables for German and Spanish, the languages most commonly used by the spies. One by one, she cracked open the Nazi networks. The first major breakthrough came with a spy ring operating out of Chile. Elizabeth intercepted and decrypted messages revealing plans to sabotage the Panama Canal. Her intelligence allowed the FBI to arrest the entire network before they could act. Dozens of Nazi agents were captured. Then she broke into an Argentine network that was tracking Allied shipping movements and feeding information directly to German U-boats prowling the South Atlantic. Every decoded message she sent to naval intelligence potentially saved ships and lives. For years, Elizebeth Friedman fought a secret war that almost no one knew about. She worked 12 and 14-hour days in a small office that most government officials didn't even know existed. She decoded thousands of Nazi messages. Her intelligence helped dismantle 48 different Nazi spy networks operating in South America. The scope of what she accomplished is staggering. She read Hitler's spies' mail. She knew their plans often before their own handlers in Germany did. She identified agents, tracked their movements, revealed their objectives. Her work gave American intelligence a complete picture of Nazi espionage in the Western Hemisphere. But here's what makes this even more remarkable. When FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover held press conferences announcing the capture of Nazi spy rings, he never mentioned Elizebeth Friedman. He took full credit. He told reporters that brilliant FBI investigative work had broken these cases. The FBI's public relations machine portrayed Hoover as a genius spy master, single-handedly protecting America from Nazi infiltration. It was all a lie. Elizabeth had done the work. Hoover took the glory. By 1942, America was fully engaged in World War II. German U-boats were devastating Allied shipping in the Atlantic. In the first 6 months of that year alone, German submarines sank over 500 ships. Thousands of sailors died. Millions of tons of vital supplies went to the bottom of the ocean. The Nazi spy networks that Elizabeth had been fighting suddenly became even more crucial. Those South American agents weren't just gathering intelligence. They were providing real-time information to U-boat wolf packs about convoy routes, departure times, cargo manifests, and defensive capabilities. Every message Elizabeth decrypted gave the Allies an advantage. When she learned that spies had identified a convoy's route, the Navy could change it. When she discovered that agents had reported a ship's cargo and schedule, that ship could be rerouted or given extra protection. When she identified a Nazi agent who was watching a particular port, that agent could be arrested or fed false information. The numbers are difficult to verify with absolute precision because so much of her work remained classified for decades. But historians estimate that Elizebeth Friedman's code breaking directly contributed to saving thousands of Allied lives and hundreds of ships. Some estimates suggest the number of ships saved due to intelligence from her work and related efforts reaches into the thousands. One of Elizabeth's most famous cases involved a Nazi spy the press called the Doll Woman. Her real name was Velvalee Dickinson. She ran a doll shop in New York City and seemed like a harmless businesswoman. In reality, she was sending encrypted letters to accommodation addresses in South America. The letters appeared to be about buying and selling dolls. They were actually detailed intelligence reports about American warships, their locations, and their battle damage. Elizabeth broke Dickinson's code. The dolls in the letters were actually ships. Different doll types represented different classes of warships. Repairs and damage to dolls described actual battle damage to American vessels. The letters provided German intelligence with remarkably accurate assessments of the U.S. Pacific Fleet. When the FBI arrested Dickinson in 1944, Hoover again took credit. Once more, Elizabeth's name was left out of the official reports and press releases. This was the pattern throughout the war. Elizabeth Friedman broke the codes. She provided the intelligence. She did the impossible work, and men took credit. It wasn't just Hoover. Various military and intelligence officials built their careers on successes that Elizabeth had made possible. She received no medals, no public recognition, no acknowledgement of her extraordinary contributions to the war effort. Why? Because she was a woman. Because the intelligence establishment couldn't admit that a housewife working with a tiny staff had accomplished what their massive agencies could not. Because giving credit to Elizabeth would mean admitting that they had needed her in the first place. The sexism was blatant and institutional. But Elizabeth kept working. She knew the truth. She knew that every message she decoded might save lives. That was enough. When World War II ended, Elizabeth Friedman finally stepped back from government service. She had spent nearly 3 decades breaking codes for her country. She had fought bootleggers in the 20s, Nazi spies in the 30s and 40s, and helped win a world war. Her thanks: near total obscurity. Her husband William received recognition for his work developing American cryptologic systems. He became known as the father of American cryptanalysis. But Elizabeth's contributions remained classified and hidden. She couldn't even tell her own children what she had really done during the war. In the 1950s and 1960s, she occasionally gave lectures about her early work in the 1920s. But the crucial World War II codebreaking remained secret. The government had classified her work so thoroughly that historians didn't even know to look for her. It took decades for Elizabeth Friedman's story to finally emerge. In the 1970s, after her death, some of her files were finally declassified. Historians began to piece together what she had accomplished. Slowly, painfully slowly, her role in World War II became clear. Today, we know the truth. Elizabeth Smith Friedman was one of the most important intelligence assets the United States had during World War II. Her work dismantling Nazi spy networks protected the Western Hemisphere. Her code breaking saved countless ships and thousands of lives. She was a pioneer who helped create the foundations of modern cryptanalysis. But for most of her life, she was dismissed as just a housewife who happened to be good with puzzles. Elizabeth Friedman's story isn't just about World War II. It's about how history treats women who do extraordinary things. It's about how institutions take credit for the work of people they consider beneath them. It's about how the truth can be buried for decades when it's inconvenient for powerful men. How many other women like Elizabeth Friedman existed? How many brilliant women made crucial contributions to the war effort only to be written out of history? How many were told to go home and raise children while men received promotions and medals for work those women had actually done? We'll never know the full answer. But we know this much. When the world was at its darkest moment, when Nazi U-boats were sinking ships by the hundreds and German spies were operating across 2 continents, a woman sitting at a desk with pencil and paper helped turn the tide. They mocked her as just a housewife. She saved thousands of lives and helped win a war. If you want to join us on this mission, To uncover the forgotten heroes of World War II, please subscribe and turn on notifications. These stories deserve to be told, and these heroes deserve to be remembered. And finally, we have one question we always ask. Where are you watching from? Our community stretches across the entire globe, from the United States to the United Kingdom, from Canada to Australia, from the Philippines to Poland. You're not just a viewer, you're part of a community keeping these memories alive. Please drop a comment and let us know your city or state, and tell us if someone in your family served. Did your grandmother work in a factory? Did your grandfather serve in the Pacific? Was there a woman in your family whose contributions were never fully recognized? Share their stories with us. Thank you for watching, and thank you for remembering the heroes history tried to forget